everybody. So today we're mostly talking about Endangered Species Act, which I'm sure last presentation of the day, some federal process is exactly what will wake everybody up. So we'll jump to the next slide. Yeah, I'm going to talk about wildlife laws, mostly ESA. We'll touch on BGIPA and MBTA a little at the end. And just some terms, and the real theme of all of this is going to be feel free to follow up with us. We're here to help, and I'll caveat all of this with the fact that I work mostly in eastern Montana and don't have great expertise in some of the species you may find yourself encountering. So please reach out if you need specific questions answered, and I'll either answer them or I'll find somebody who can. So with that, we'll skip to the ESA. So we'll mostly talk about Section 7 today. Section 7 is the process through which federal agencies cooperate with Fish and Wildlife Service to analyze their effects on federally listed species. Towards the end, we'll touch on Section 10. Section 10 is the permitting process for non-federal entities to work with us on listed species. So why do we consult under Section 7? Because the Act tells us to, and because federal agencies have a requirement not to jeopardize federally listed species. And so they will work with us to provide information, and we will help them to minimize their effects on listed species. The way that non-federal entities, such as probably most of you, get involved in Section 7 is if there's a federal nexus with a federal action agency. So the terminology there from the Act is authorized, funded, or carried out. So if you have a federal authorization, such as a core permit or a special use permit, if you receive grant funding, maybe through NRCS or another agency like that, then that can pull your project into the federal realm, and then you can work with that federal action agency to provide information, and they will consult with us. So yeah, the role of the applicant in the consultation process. So it's the action agency that does the consulting, but they may give their non-federal partner quite a lot of responsibility. At a minimum, they'll ask for information. There's also an official status, a designated non-federal representative. If you were so designated, then you can consult directly with us as long as the consultation remains informal, and I'll get to what that means in a bit. So the non-federal representative is an official designation. So the action agency needs to notify us when they designate a non-federal rep. So the process, the action agency assembles all the information that they can to provide to us, and we can help with that information gathering. And the document that's prepared is called a biological assessment. These are the things that need to be in a biological assessment. The action needs to be described. The affected area or the action area needs to be defined. The species and critical habitat present, and then a discussion of how the action can affect those species and critical habitats. Let's see. And any other, really any other relevant information is what item 5 and 6 are on this slide. I Identifying the action area is important because it may extend beyond the direct area being affected. For example, things like noise effects or runoff can affect areas outside the immediate area that's being affected. And so the short version is the action area may need to be larger than just the area that's being directly affected by the project. Uh, there needs to be a species list, as I said a couple slides ago. Part of the biological assessment is defining the listed species and critical habitats that may be present. And we have our friend IPAC that can generate that species list. IPAC is quite handy in that you can go into this system, you can upload a shapefile and or draw a project area, and it will generate an official species list for you, which will, if you're logged into the system as a registered user, it will send us a copy of that automatically. So as you've gone through that process, you've completed your biological assessment, then you will that will lead you to making an effects determination for the relevant listed species and critical habitat. The three possible determinations are no effect. If there's no effect to listed species or critical habitat, then the action agency does not need to consult with us on that. So that's where the process ends. The next option is may affect. And if it's may affect, not likely to adversely affect, that's the endpoint of an informal consultation. So in that case, the action agency would consult with us. They would ask us to concur with their not likely to adversely affect determination. The three reasons why it would be not likely to adversely affect are if the effects are discountable, insignificant, or wholly beneficial. And then the third option is may affect and likely to adversely affect. And that's the proper determination if any effect of the action would be adverse to a listed species or a critical habitat. And in that case, that triggers formal consultation between the federal action agency and us. And we will generate a biological opinion based on that consultation. So that's the short version of Section 7. Section 10 is the permitting process that allows non-federal entities to get a permit for take of a listed species. And the most common way you'll encounter that is through a habitat conservation plan. Habitat conservation plans are required to, as part of the process, to apply for an incidental take permit. They are required to minimize and mitigate for the effects of the permitted action. And these are a few of the existing HCPs in Montana. HCPs are expensive, they take a long time, and they take a lot of work on both ends. So that last bullet there indicating that we're not really working on any HCPs now. But I think the important takeaway from this slide is that those existing HCPs can be good sources for minimization and mitigation measures that might be valuable in other projects. Some updates on our current listing and recovery actions. We're currently considering 3 petitions to delist the grizzly bear. We're currently considering a petition to relist the wolf in the Northern Rocky Mountains. Both of those actions are awaiting a 90-day finding. A 90-day finding is the process by which we determine whether the petition includes significant information that warrants further consideration. And then if that 90-day finding is positive, then we'll do a 12-month finding, which will be our determination of whether the petitioned action, the listing or delisting, should move forward. The wolverine is currently proposed for listing as threatened. Canada lynx, we're currently working on a revised recovery plan and revised critical habitat. I'm sorry, I misspoke. This will be the first recovery plan for lynx, and then the critical habitat will be a revision. The white bark pine, we've proposed to list as threatened. That'll be happening probably next week. Northern long-eared bat, we have proposed to uplist that species. It's currently threatened and would be uplisted to endangered. That's an eastern Montana species. They're primarily found in the riparian areas along the Yellowstone and the Missouri. We're currently considering a 90-day finding on the petition to list the pinyon jay, and we're currently, we being our office in Arizona, currently working on a recovery plan for yellow-billed cuckoo. I'll move to bald and golden eagle protection now. Let's see. So the BGEPA prohibits the take of bald eagles. Take is defined there in that third bullet. Basically, you can't disturb, molest, or kill an eagle. An important point with eagles is that you also can't remove their nests, even if they're not, even at a time when they're not occupied. Some valuable sources of information for eagles. Bryce did a great job talking about NHP, the NHP database, and what you can find there. That's the first place I look when I need information on bald eagles or golden eagles. You can coordinate with us, other local and other local offices of federal agencies or the tribes. And you can survey your project area for bald eagles. Then second half of this slide is listing some useful guidelines for eagles. We have the luxury here in Montana of having the 2010 bald eagle management guidelines. The federal guidelines are good, but they're nationwide, and the Montana guidelines are more tailored locally. And so that's the first place I look when I need to think about how to minimize effects to bald eagles or golden eagles. Let's see. So permitting under BGEPA, there's permits available. They can authorize incidental take. There are permits for disturbance. There's permits for nest removal, and there's permits even for mortality. Most of those are associated with wind energy projects, the mortality permits, I mean. They have requirements for minimizing, mitigating, and monitoring. There's links there for additional information. That last bullet there, Office of Law Enforcement focuses on investigating entities that take eagles without identifying and implementing reasonable, prudent, and effective measures. Basically, it's saying that more attention will be on projects where someone knowingly takes an eagle without trying to avoid it. What's new under BGEPA? So we have a proposed rule out that would allow us to issue 4 new categories of general permits. One of those is for disturbance, and the idea there is to streamline the process. As bald eagles have recovered, there's been a need for more permits, and so the idea is to use a general permit that has standardized guidelines and allows us to permit actions more efficiently. The MBTA, or Migratory Bird Treaty Act, similar to the definition of take under BGEPA, it's basically prohibiting killing birds, migratory birds. there's a list of migratory birds that's maintained. It's most of the native species in the US, but not all of them because they're not all migratory. And let's see, MBTA, that last bullet there, we interpret it to prohibit not only intentional take, but also incidental take that's incidental to another action. Here's some resources for information on migratory birds. We keep a list of the birds of conservation concern, NHP again, local offices. These best practices are useful, and there's one for vegetation management that I think would be relevant to this audience. So those last two bullets there link to those best practices. Permits are available under MBTA, but not for that incidental take that we talked about on the last slide. The permits that are currently available are for depredation, rehab, scientific uses, things like that. And again, this bullet about enforcement is gonna, in cases where someone knowingly takes a bird without trying not to, those are the cases that are going to get the most attention. What's new? So under a few years ago, there was an opinion indicating that an opinion within the Department of Interior indicating that incidental take was not take under MBTA. That has been changed back to the current thinking that incidental take is take. And we've put out a Federal Register notice asking for public comment on the potential for future permitting process for incidental take under the MBTA. So that's currently under consideration. So let's see. That's pretty much what I had. I blew through my 45 minutes in 17, but here's my contact information. Like I said earlier, please feel free to reach out anytime. We're here to help, and we can help you find information. We can give advice. Technical assistance is a big part of what we do. So that's my time, or that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Jake. Great job there. Yeah, we gave you the toughest time slot today, so sorry about that. But thanks for being here. I don't see any questions in the chat box, but I was thinking. Oh, somebody was raising their hand there. Put that back up so I could see it if you took it down. Oh, Gordy, there you are. Go ahead. We could hear you. Go ahead, ask your question.
Okay. So question, Jake, really appreciate your presentation. Wondering, could you kind of share what, the interaction or relationship is between U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and your good work and the Montana Natural Heritage Program?
Yeah, I could say a little about that, and if Bryce is still on, he might want to chime in, but I think we do a good job of sharing information. They help us with mapping. We use them as an information source for our work, and we're also, the other thing I'm aware of is that we're cooperating with them quite a lot on bat surveys. Mike McGrath on my staff works with the NHP folks on bats.
Thank you.
The only thing that I would add to that is that we try to make sure that whatever Fish and Wildlife Service's final determination is on things, that we're using that sort of polygonal feature or spatial product so that everybody is getting directed toward Fish and Wildlife Service when needed.
Thanks, Brian.
Well, without seeing any other questions or any other raised hands besides Gordy, unless you still have a second question, I don't necessarily want to keep people along just for the sake of filling up the entire agenda, but I'll probably turn it back over to Jason here to do